welcome everyone. We have a very nice mix of park post and stuff tonight. So Jason, he is a junior. Junior in Syracuse at Newhouse, television, radio, film. And so I've been pushing and pressuring him to do a meeting and lead one for a year now. And so this is his first one. Yay.
I actually think I need to change my preferences to share my screen. So I might need to leave for a second. I'm sorry.
Okay. Again, it's his first meeting. So, yeah. So he'll be back. He's also prepping one for next semester on Indigenous filmmaking. So I think that would be really cool. So yeah, I think we'll probably have one more meeting after tonight. So next week will probably be our last one for the semester, except for final screenings. So, I stopped him. So yeah, so we'll kind of announce what we're doing at the end. Me and Nick, we're having fun. So yeah, so Jason, if you want to get started.
Sure.
Be good now.
Can you all see my screen? All right, cool. So as the title says, we're going to talk about fighting games, esports, and how these kinds of games build their community. So there's like a lot of fighting games. You'll see a ton of photos throughout of all different types of fighting games and all different titles. And each one has kind of their own community and they kind of blend together and all that. But how do they do it? So just like a quick little definition. So a fighting game is a video game genre based around close combat between a limited number of characters in a stage in which the boundaries are fixed. So, you know, the top one is Street Fighter V. The next one down is called Them's Fightin' Herds. And then the one below that is Dragon Ball Fighters. So you can see they're all kind of the same concept. And we'll kind of get into how that can be bent a little bit. So Street Fighter 2, this is kind of like the first modern fighting game. And like a little backstory on that is Street Fighter 1 had the life bars kind of shrinking away into the timer, the KO in the middle. You have two people kind of fighting. You had special moves, you had normal moves, but on accident, Street Fighter 2 made special inputs cancel the animation to your normal moves. So you would be able to combo things into each other. So it created this combo system that was like totally a new concept. Sorry. So the combo system introduced this like whole new thing that birthed what we now know today as the fighting game. So fighting games have this stigma that they're really difficult to get into. And I just kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit because I'm sure a lot of you were like, oh, esports fighting games, like, what is that? And how would I even get into that? And I know I was like, how do people do this when I first heard about it? So one of the reasons why people think it's so hard is because there's an execution barrier. So like the top left image is a list of motion inputs. So I was talking earlier about special inputs and how they can cancel your normal inputs. So like, what do I even mean there? So the little red dot on the top left image, it says like spinning bird kick and Kikuken and stuff like that. So that's the red dot is the joystick, and you move the stick in that direction, and then you click a button, and it does like a special move. And the way that people refer to these is they'll sometimes say quarter circles, like that bottom one there, and or like a Z input or a pretzel motion, or they'll refer to them in like keypad notation, I think it's called, or calculator notation, where they have like to the right it says 7, 8, 9, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. So if you had to do a a quarter circle forward, you would call it a 2, 3, 6. And then sometimes you press one button, sometimes you press two buttons. And then the other reason why, so it's kind of complicated to string those together, and there's like a specific timing to it. So they're hard to play. And then there's kind of like this gatekeeping in the community, I would say, where if you don't know something, you just won't be able to push your way through. Like you'd have to know this history behind certain things. So like frame data, you won't understand unless someone's introduced that concept to you. You won't know what a wave dash is in Smash unless someone broke it down for you. You won't know when something hits meaty unless someone explained that to you. So it can kind of be intimidating when you're watching these games competitively and there's an announcer or a commentator saying like, oh, that was a good burst or something like that, and you don't know what that even means. So I want to ask, I guess I kind of asked this when we started. So we know that some people play Smash, maybe less so than others. We have, some players, but I want to ask, like, have any of you, like, is this usually what Smash looks like to you? Like you have Shadow as an assist, slowing down time. You got a lightning bolt going through Wario, and you have, I think that's Marth getting like flung across the screen. You're fighting on a battleship. Like, this is what Smash looks like, I think, to a lot of people. You play with, 8-player Smash on, you have 5, 6 people playing at a time. And I just want to show that before I show what Smash looks like to me. So this is also Smash Ultimate. This is during Genesis 7 of Grand Finals. And you got 2 people on the screen. You have a very basic stage. You might be noticing that there's no items falling from the sky. There's no flinging across the screen. And if you notice at the bottom of each character, they have a stock count. So if you die 3 times, you lose. So that's like the competitive rule set. But yeah, I just wanted to show like the two in contrast. So you might remember Smash looking more like this if you got in after 2001, maybe a little before 2007. This is Super Smash Bros. Melee. And this is kind of where it all started, as Smash as a fighting game. So it's the second installation of the series. And the reason why it's still being played today, and the reason why is because they made the game within like 13 months. So they kind of rushed it out. And there are some exploits in the game that make the game apparently a really intricate and complex fighting games. So it's still being played today. And a lot of the mechanics aren't even in Smash Ultimate, aren't even in Smash 4 or Brawl. So you have things like L canceling, which cancels the lag or shortens the lag on some of your moves. You have wave dashing, which is like a movement option, which you might see shown off a little bit later. But yeah, so the competitive scene is still alive. So Smash wasn't intended to be a party game. These are exploits that are in the game. And it just was kind of like a happy accident that this is what's going on. That this is, you know, like what happened. Nintendo didn't want this, and Nintendo infamously doesn't support the competitive scene. So how does Smash go from something like the picture on the left where you're playing with your friends to something like what's on your right, which I'm pretty sure must be a photo from Genesis 3. That's the G3 in the bottom left corner. You can see it kind of looks like concert, like a rock concert. Like these people show up to watch people play video games. Like that's super weird. I assume that there are some sports fans watching, maybe some even like music lovers who there's a difference between, you know, watching some like listening to something on your iPod or iPhone and going to like a concert and experiencing that whole thing. And there's, you know, the sports people, like why would people, you know, fly out to wherever to watch a football game or a basketball game? I'd like you to keep those reasons for why you enjoy that like in the back of your head, because I think a lot of the answer is from the same kind of place. But so Nintendo doesn't support this community, so it is all about the community to get it from the picture on the left to the picture on the right. So I think a huge part in that was the Smash Brothers documentary. So this is a documentary, came out like a 9-part documentary. It's on YouTube right now. You can watch it in episodes, and it is kind of what gave a rebirth to the competitive scene of Smash Brothers Melee. So the scene was kind of dying, and this guy made this documentary about these 7 really great players of the time. And we're gonna watch like the opening, like 3 or 5 minutes of it. And I want you to pay attention to how it kind of breaks down what Smash is thought to be and how it could be played. And notice how it kind of like gives an importance to players as like an athlete almost, or a scientist, and how they each have their own personality and how they play the game. It might not get to that just in the intro, but it's there in the documentary. So this documentary was so important because it gave rise to documentary kids, which is kind of like the next generation of Melee. Like after all, you know, after the 5 gods all retire and all that, we're going to be left with documentary kids, and then maybe the next will be like the Slippy rollback generation. But let's take a look at this.
We all want a future that matters.
Let us begin.
Yeah.
You can't see it?
Yeah, we can only see the PowerPoint right now.
Gotcha. Can you hear it? Cool.
Bigger than everybody.
Today, a friend of the producer is coming over to play Smash Brothers Melee.
How you doing? Pretty good. Yourself? Yep. Good.
He considers himself to be pretty good, having played the game for several years. What he doesn't know is he's about to play Korean DJ, one of the greatest Melee players of all time.
Oh. Whoops.
Each player has 4 lives or stocks, and must take all of his opponent's stocks to win. KDJ will lose 3 on purpose.
Oh, Fox is so awesome. Oh, so excited I'm playing this game again.
For centuries, dairy farmers have been going green. And now they're committed to reducing
We're
their
just
carbon
getting to the
footprint
good part.
even more. For example, Laura turns manure into natural fertilizer. Brian converts.
Now he will try.
I want to introduce you to Korean DJ, who is one of the greatest Smash Brothers players of all time.
KDJ then invited the cameraman to fight. And then the producer.
Oh, there's gotta be enough of us here. Nice. Oh! Oh my god!
How is it possible for someone to be so fast and so precise that even 3 opponents would be no match? This is about a game that was never designed to be played at a competitive level. And the people who discovered just how far the game could go.
Well, I'd never heard your name before, so go suck a dick.
Tons of people behind me just screaming.
He goes there ready to die. Best feeling ever.
But mostly, this is about the 7 greatest players who, in their time, ruled the world.
You made a ref.
Yeah, so that's pretty much all we need to see for that. But yeah, does anyone have any like questions about that documentary, or anything else that it did? Okay.
Has anyone seen it?
I'm about to. I have not heard of that. That sounds awesome. It's just on YouTube?
Yeah, you can find it on YouTube. I think it's posted by East Point Pictures. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So the Smash Bros. Documentary, very important. And also kind of like going back to the sports analogy, like it gave people heroes to kind of look to. Like Ken is one of the first people it talks about. Like Ken, so many people say that he was their inspiration to get into this game competitively. And apparently it's like something that a lot of pro players now will come back to every once in a while and rewatch certain episodes to kind of refuel and rekindle their, passion for the game and stuff like that. So the Smash community today, this statistic is a little outdated. It's from October of 2017, but Smash Brothers Melee, a 20-year-old game, was the 8th most streamed or most top watched esport by the hours. And I think it's kind of interesting how total hours was 1.6 million, and then esports hours was 1.2 million of those hours. So definitely heavily watched competitively. So the Smash community today, it still doesn't have that first party support. So there needs to be a lot of community building, which is done kind of through YouTube, I would say, most of it, and then through streams. So if you go on Twitch, when a lot of it's like through the community. So on Twitch, when Corona first hit, they had Rona Rumble every week. getting like the top people within a region to play, and just keep creating a buzz for the game and keep creating hype around the game. But if you're not into the game, you're probably not going to be watching it on Twitch necessarily, or seeking it out on Twitch. So that's where YouTube comes in. So I would say that YouTube kind of has like a microcosm, each video has like that same kind of Smash documentary effect of like building interest and educating people on the game. So when it comes to building interest, I would say that similar to like sports, esports have storylines, they have personalities, they have villains and heroes and underdogs and rivalries and things like that. And I put this picture on the right here. It's like a drawn illustration of the 5 gods of Smash Brothers Melee and their respective characters kind of floating on top of them. And it's basically an anime. Like it in a way feels like, when you talk about the history, it feels like a real life like tournament arc of something out of Dragon Ball, which I think kind of adds to the lore and the hype. So going off of that, they have video essays on YouTube that kind of explore that and explain it to people. So this one is from Empleman, I think is his name, and he kind of did this pseudo documentary on Hungrybox, who's like a big villain in the scene. So Hungrybox is maybe the most hated player in the world, of Smash Melee. But now, because of this video, he all of a sudden is one of the biggest streamers for Smash Ultimate and one of the biggest Smash Ultimate personalities, because this documentary kind of went into the whole crab incident. So basically, HBox is playing through this tournament and this happens.
Smash Bros. Melee champion.
After an incredible comeback victory, Hungrybox begins to celebrate in front of the stunned crowd. But unfortunately for him, the celebration he earned is about to be cut very, very short.
Hungrybox is the champion.
What is that?
Once again.
What is that? What is he holding?
I'm not sure what that is in his hand.
Hey! Hey! Who threw this at me?
He's saying someone threw that at him?
Just because Hungrybox won?
Just 10 seconds after his victory, a disgruntled spectator throws a raw crab at Hungrybox, narrowly missing his head. In a matter of seconds, Hungrybox is transformed from the most joyful person in the arena to the most miserable. Most people don't care that much about video games, but some people do. Out of these people, most don't care about competitive gaming, but some do. And for all the esports out there, most spectators don't care about watching a 19-year-old game, but still, some do. And out of those few people, surely no one cares enough about the outcome of a match to throw a raw crab at the winner. But on this day in Laurel, Maryland, someone did. As far as I know, this is the only time something like this has ever happened in the history of competitive video games. But if it was gonna happen, it was probably gonna happen to Hungrybox. Who is Hungrybox?
You know how hard I work on here?
So that is another one for you guys to check out if it seems kind of interesting. And I like that one, actually. That was a good one. But yeah, so there's like a bunch of these kinds of things out there, and they kind of explore those storylines. So now I just wanted to kind of show Hungrybox a little bit of like what he's all about.
Dairy farmers go green in many upcycled plants from other local farms. For example, Lindsay includes
number 9 large. I mean, someone donated for a pizza, so I had to order a pizza really quick. Might be.
A great slam and then some. You're up.
Best Nets versus MKLeo. I've been waiting for this one. Probably stay this character all set. Oh my god. Okay, so Leo's smart. Leo didn't fall for that. That's one of the most classic jukes. You know what I mean? Oh my.
So that's just like a little taste of that. That's also a little bit of like what competitive ultimate kind of looks like. Sorry, I keep like having to share my screen several times. So that is Hungrybox. So from this video made by kind of like an outsider from the community, he kind of shed a new light on this guy Hbox, like who's like the worst person in the Smash scene, and kind of what he's all about, and kind of broke that narrative a little bit. So there's also like a huge component with educating. So the Smash Brothers documentary does this really well, where it'll explain like what a wave dash is, what L canceling is, things like that. But for more specific, for like more generally like traditional fighting games like the Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat that we were looking at, Tekken, things like that. There's Core Gaming, and he does talk about Smash a little bit. He uses it as like examples and things like that. Core Gaming is really good at, I would say, getting people interested in the high level ideas behind a fighting game, and it'll make you a better spectator. It'll give you like a totally new appreciation for watching fighting games and things like that. We're gonna take a look at a little bit of a Core Gaming video. So I want to compare educating on YouTube versus like what it used to be like. So it used to be, arcades are still big in Japan now, but arcades are kind of dead here. But it used to just be that you would go to an arcade, and whoever you would play, like for Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter like Third Strike or something like that, you would just get your quarters worth out of the machine. And figuring out like a special input, I feel like I remember playing Street Fighter at like my day camp when we would go to like the arcade or whatever, and we would I did not even think that motion inputs were a thing. Like seeing someone throw a fireball from Ryu's hands would have been like, I would have felt like this person was cheating, because all I knew was like hold forward and hit one of the two buttons that you have, or hold backwards or down or jump. I didn't think you could throw a fireball or spin around and kick people. So back then when they would have like arcade, tournaments held in the arcade, like that was the competitive scene. You could, if you knew something that was unblockable or like a frame trap setup, you could use that against everybody. And if they didn't know about it, they would just lose, and you could withhold that information to win. So I think it's really good that the education on, with like online resources is out there. And I think that's also helping build the communities as well. So now kind of like today, what's going on is everybody is inside. So we have to play online. But the issue is, if you've ever played online before, you'll know that there's like delay and it sucks. Especially with fighting games where you need to do like a input, and if it misses the input and it doesn't do the right thing, and then you lose for it, you'd be like extremely frustrated. And Ultimate's netcode is really horrible. And so are a lot of fighting games, especially popular ones. But this new thing has kind of been coming back and being implemented in these older games and games coming out, but more so older games kind of have been taking the spotlight recently for it and showing that rollback netcode instead of delay-based netcode is really, really important. So I'm going to show a video that kind of explains what rollback netcode is. But if you look at the picture on the bottom left, this Guilty Gear, Accent Core, plus R, really long name, but that's an old game from years ago. And right now it had, like, this was, I took this image from a couple days ago. It had like the highest average player count of any fighting game at a given moment, higher than Dragon Ball FighterZ, which is usually up there. So this is all literally because a week or two ago, it was announced that the game was coming out with rollback netcode implemented into the game. So basically what rollback does is it makes the online feel like you're playing offline. So let's watch the video about that.
Who are the real champions? Our military. And DraftKings is proud to serve them with our tech.
In fighting games, performing the Daigo parry or certain combos requires precise timing. Press an input a moment too early or too late, and you fail your combo and maybe die because of it. It's not too unlike learning a song on a musical instrument. Now imagine how hard it would be to play a song you practiced if your guitar did this.
The hell?
Not only that, but sometimes the note comes out really late or sometimes a little late. It's random. This is what it's like to play fighting games online with delay-based netcode. When you press a button, there's a delay because the game waits for the other side to receive your input before showing the move on both screens. But this is terrible to play in unless the delay between both players is very short, but not everyone has super good internet connections and not everyone lives in the same region. If everyone could play offline together, lag wouldn't be a problem, but we live in a world where arcades die and viruses live, so netplay matters a lot. Sadly, there's no way to remove the delay between two distant online connections, but Tony Cannon discovered a way to make it so your move appears immediately, even before it reaches your opponent.
I started working on this around in like late 2005, early 2006, and it was because all the games that were coming out for the consoles just had really bad delay-based netcode.
What's insane about this technology is that it's achieved by predicting the future and time traveling. Seriously.
2015? You mean we're in the future?
Let's say there's 45 milliseconds of delay between you and your opponent. If the character you control has no lag and your move comes out before the input reaches your opponent, what does your opponent see? If you kick and your opponent's side sees it 45 milliseconds later, both sides are now 45 milliseconds out of sync, which is no good. But there is a way to get it in sync. When your opponent's side receives your input, it can just skip the first 45 milliseconds of your kick animation. You might be thinking this could look weird or choppy, but at full speed, it's hard to tell. It's like when everyone starts singing Happy Birthday, but you join in a little late. You skip the first words of the song so you'll be in sync, and no one will notice. But if your opponent receives all your actions 45 milliseconds late, what do you look like to them in the meantime? In our kick example, you were shown to be just standing there for 45 milliseconds before kicking. Why did their side think you were just standing there? Because it was its best guess. It was a wrong guess, but it was reasonable considering you were standing there previously. At any given moment, each side is trying to predict what the opponent is currently doing based on the previously received input. And what's crazy is, most of the time it's correct. This is because it doesn't take a fortune teller to predict things one frame into the future.
I'm just going to assume the thing you did last is the thing you do next, like forever. Oh, you were holding back to block? I'm going to assume you're still holding back to block.
Can you guess what my sleeping cats will do in the next frame? If you guess sleep, then you might just be a precog. Obviously, you knew the answer because you saw what they were doing previously. But just like a precog, predictions can be wrong. To clearly show what happens with incorrect predictions, let's just say there's a huge 500 millisecond delay with your opponent. If your opponent is walking forward, your side will correctly predict their position because there's only one direction to predict, forward. But if they suddenly do something different like jump, your side will still think they're walking because it didn't get the memo yet. But the moment your side receives the news that your opponent jumped 500 milliseconds ago, it will instantly roll them back to your opponent's correct position, which is in midair at this point. Hence, rollback netcode. Remember, this was an extreme case. With normal amounts of delay, the amount of rollback would be practically unnoticeable. Rollback netcode works because when the predictions are correct, things are in sync, and when it's not, it gets corrected before anyone notices. Sometimes huge lag spikes can go unnoticed if all the predictions are correct in that time, and you might be surprised just how often the predictions are correct.
How fast do people move the controller? How many inputs are there? There's probably no more than like 5 per second. That's a lot, 5 inputs per second. So that means if there's 60 frames per second, that means you're right more than 90% of the time.
But sometimes you can notice if the game has moments of drastic and instantaneous changes, for example, KOs in Third Strike. The KO pops up and the screen freezes right on the final blow, so if the game predicts someone got knocked out but they actually blocked the hit, you can get a "you win, just kidding" moment. This isn't a big problem in Super Turbo because the final blow just slows down the screen.
Yeah, don't do large disruptive VFX or screen text in the first 2 or 3 frames, however long you expect your rollback to be. The other is like don't design moves that have very large displacement on the first or second frame.
Developing the game with rollback netcode in mind will minimize these glitchy moments, but weirdness will happen regardless if network delay is too large and the game has to roll back to things that happened too far in the past.
What the f was that?
But another way to minimize how far you need to roll back is by delaying everyone's inputs on purpose. If you're late to a party, but they postponed the time, you will be less late or even early. The more you delay everyone's inputs, the shorter the rollback time. But of course, more delay means your character feels laggy. Rollback netcode is usually combined with delay netcode to strike a balance between glitchiness and lag. But there is one more potential.
He talks about riff, but we don't really need to understand that to kind of know what he's it's just kind of like another issue with rollback. So kind of going off of the designing for rollback netcode, a lot of people said that Guilty Gear, a game like Guilty Gear, is too fast and too complex for rollback netcode to kind of keep up with, but apparently it is like really nice to play on, so it still works even if the game isn't designed for rollback. The bottom right picture is Slippy, a screenshot from the Slippy website, which is Melee's netcode. So Melee is kind of having another resurgence where anyone can download Melee like on Dolphin or something like that, and on an emulator, and you make like a Slippy account, and you can play with rollback, and apparently it feels like really smooth. So now there's this kind of cycle repeating where these old games are getting into the spotlight again, and you need the community to step in and say, okay, like now that everyone wants to play Guilty Gear again, and now that everyone wants to play Melee again, like here's how to wave dash, here's what Roman canceling is, here's all these, players that you might really like to check out, here's the story behind our game and why it's so cool. So that's all I have. Yeah. Any questions?
Calvin, before you go.
Yes.
I'll post the recording so you can get the links and everything if you didn't get it.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely seems really interesting. I gotta check out more of these videos.
Yeah, I definitely recommend Corey Gaming because he makes it like extremely accessible, like with the guitar example, with the happy birthday example. Really easy way to get into like understanding fighting games.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
okay. Good night, everyone.
Yeah, Corey Gaming though is like one of the YouTube channels that I can just rewatch every video on their channel. It's so good.
Yeah, it's also a nice log of fighting games. So if you see one that you like, it'll probably be linked. Like he'll probably mention it in like the description of the video or something, or he'll say which one it is, and you could be like, I want to get into that game.
Yeah, it makes me think I want to play Tekken, which every time I play Tekken, it's not my game, but it looks really cool. I love watching Tekken. I can't play it for the life of me, man.
Yeah, that's sometimes the best thing though, is like as long as you can appreciate watching it, like as long as you can support the scene, like that's great. Like even if you can't
Yeah.
play it. Shayna told me she was working on a Tekken movie.
You worked on the Tekken movie?
Again? Are they doing a new one?
No, you worked on the Is it
How
fun?
did that? Yeah,
I didn't know if
how
it
did
ever
that
came
end up?
out.
I don't think so.
Did it ever come out?
I don't
I don't think so.
I feel like I saw a Tekken movie.
I
There are
saw
no Tekken
screens.
movies?
No, I saw screens from it, but I don't think it ever actually came out.
Yeah.
There's a Mortal Kombat movie.
Ooh, yeah. There's
Definitely.
the Street Fighter movie was excellent. Raul Julia's final role before he died. So sad.
M. Bison, yeah. I think Mortal Kombat's still my favorite, though.
Yeah, oh, it's good.
Because the music, too, was great in that.
Didn't George Clinton do the music for Mortal Kombat the movie?
What?
I'm pretty sure he did the composition
That's all like
of the theme
techno
song.
and house music.
I
Nick. I don't
know.
think George Clinton's on that. Yeah, I could be wrong. I thought Tekken actually came out. So.
It looks like Tekken the movie came out in 2009.
I'm pretty sure
Oh my
I saw
God, it
Tekken
actually
movie.
came out.
And there was a sequel, Tekken 2, Kazuya's Revenge in 2014.
That I did not see.
I did not work on the sequel. I just remember doing lots of like crowd duplications. Because
Is Soul Calibur something that's getting any rollback play?
Soul Calibur.
Love that game. I actually played like
On
a
my
traditional
Dreamcast,
esport.
man, so-
Yeah. Before esports were called esports, I was winning Soul Calibur tournaments in Ithaca, New York.
Nice.
Wow.
That's
I
awesome.
think there's a chance that Soul Calibur 6 is going to get rollback, actually. Because, like, yesterday, Tekken 7 just got rollback. I think people are, like, trying to figure out if it actually has rollback, because the director was sort of being, like, weird about it on Twitter a while ago and said that there was rollback, and there might have been, but we couldn't really tell. It's weird, but apparently it has it now. So, and it's got the same, well, not the same development team, but it's got the same publishers, same developers. So I think it could totally get rollback netcode.
Yeah, or maybe even like a really old game. I mean, the Guilty Gear one started as like a fan project, and then Arc System Works was like, we'll let you do this officially, and they were like, cool. And then Slippy for Melee, like that was just a fan-made thing. So it kind of depends. And then like rollback, sometimes you can implement it poorly. So I know like Street Fighter V has rollback, but apparently it doesn't feel very good. Wait, I just saw.
Is there a lot of room to grow in the sort of rollback technology then? It feels like that's something that could continue to become more efficient.
I think, yeah, it seems like, I think it's on like a game by game basis. There is GGPO, which is like this standard right now. But I think you still need to like cater it towards your game. Like obviously it takes a lot more money and resources to use rollback netcode than delay-based netcode. So a lot of people have been just saying, okay, like delay-based is good enough, but people are finding that it's not, because this new game just came out like a month or two ago called Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, and that's delay-based netcode. It looks really nice. It was gonna have a nice competitive scene. There were gonna be tournaments this year. And and it was looking to be one of the more like happening and exciting games of the year. But then now that the pandemic hit and it's delay-based netcode, nobody is playing the game online. So the scene is kind of dying out right now. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Do you think that's like the number one hurdle for fighting games to sort of get on the same level as like the top esports, is this delay problem?
Maybe because there's only so many top players that are like, yeah, I'm from Nicaragua, there's no competitive scene there, I am just really good at this game, I moved to the US with a couple bucks in my pocket and I won a tournament, and then like that rarely happens. So I wouldn't be surprised if a whole generation of new players come of it. I think it's really important for the developers of the game to put like tutorials and things that like actually like helpful, meaningful ways of learning and rewarding in the game, so that people stick with it and don't think like, oh, I'm losing all the time, I suck at this game sucks, and then leave forever. Like they need to have some kind of milestone, like, oh, you anti-aired someone consistently that game, like good job, or you took a round or something like that, or you did a special input properly for the first time. Because I think there's like the biggest thing with fighting games is I think like it feels like you are the only one to blame when you lose or when you do something wrong. So I think a lot of people don't like that aspect.
Sure. Yeah.
Luke, did you have a question?
Bye.
No anticipation.
Abort.
Disappeared.
Yeah, I posted in the chat, but that's a different George Clinton. It's
Okay.
George S. Clinton.
Okay, because I saw it. They're like they're re-releasing the soundtrack for the movie on Record Store Day or something, and I was like, I did not know George Clinton did. That doesn't sound right.
That's a funny observation.
Does anyone that doesn't play fighting games or Smash need like any clarification? Like, did I move way too fast in that, or?
Honestly, it was like I definitely learned some things, but I don't think anyone was going to be able to like there's no way I was going to fully understand it in an hour. I think it's just like very complex. So, but it was interesting to get a baseline of how it works. So,
Don't worry, I knew nothing.
me either.
So
this is like the third time I've heard this presentation, and I'm still like, words, I don't know, but the videos really helped.
So, do you know if there's any initiative in the competitive gaming scene for competitive fighting games for inclusion? I mean, it's a problem across the board, especially with women, but fighting games especially have just been historically very masculine, very cliquey. Like you said, there's this this kind of barrier to entry for newbies. It used to be in the arcade where you just have to be humiliated over and over again, and it got really expensive, but you finally kind of learned. But even then, there's this kind of definite toxic kind of masculinity going on. Do you know if there's any like initiatives or organizations or communities around inclusion?
I asked him the same thing.
Yeah,
he knew it was coming.
I'm still not any more like wise on that. There is a Core A Gaming video about being a female fighting game player.
Okay, cool.
Which might answer some of your questions if you check it out.
I will.
I do think that people like are seeing this problem and they're trying to be like you can't always help it in these communities, like because everyone kind of has their own way of dealing with new players. But I think a lot of people, like if you just pick up their game, they're excited to see you playing like their game. Like they know that it's small. Like if anyone picked up Soul Calibur or Tekken or Guilty Gear or even Smash, they'd be excited to see that you have some kind of interest. And there are I know some female players and they do really well, and there are some trans players and they do really well, and they have big followings. So I don't know, we'll see. Maybe there's like a silent generation of new players that are gonna kind of come into the scene that we don't really know about.
Well, I think you touched upon it with just this whole idea of online communities drawing in new players, kind of bring in people into these kind of extended narratives and kind of storylines and histories. So it seems like that will go a pretty long way in breaking down a lot of these barriers. But it's just something that I was thinking about watching this, that you can't help but notice everybody's male and mostly white, you know? But yeah.
I think it's definitely when you, because a lot of it is like exposure. Like you don't always play on stream when you go to a tournament. But if you go to your local, you will probably play someone female in, or see a bunch of females at your local, and you'll be like, wow, I didn't even know like girls played my game or whatever. But they are there, they just don't get there's just less of them, and then maybe they're not the top 8 players, so they don't get into the spotlight, you know?
Yeah, and this is an issue with sports across the board too. I mean, it's not just esports.
And
actually,
one trend I've seen, just real quick, I think there's a bigger focus on wellness and mental health in gaming. There's a lot of initiatives around that, and that's brought inclusion kind of with it in a lot of ways. So it's early, but they're headed in the right direction, and they're having the conversations now finally.
I've been kind of wondering the same thing. Like for any girls here, I've been wondering, like, is it because like the same thing with like the film school community and like a lot of stuff, like is it that there's not a lot of like female representation, so it like feels like it's hard to join? Or is it like what is like the barrier for entry in a lot of these, like what is the thing that makes it like feel not inclusive? I'm just wondering, just like a question.
Douchiness.
I think I should mention actually real quick, there is actually an organization for women in fighting games called Combo Queens, which is like a lot of content creators. They run tournaments and stuff like that. Also Sonic Fox, one of like the best, they're non-binary, and they're the best Mortal Kombat player probably of all time, an amazing Dragon Ball FighterZ player, Skullgirls, tons of games. They're just super good. Here, I'll send a Twitter link to Combo Queens.
Thanks.
Thank
I
you.
haven't heard about that. Yeah. Sorry, Jess, did you have something? Or Heather, did
I
you?
think Heather was going to say something.
Oh, yeah, to answer Jacob's question then, I don't play video games that much. I've sort of wanted to sometimes approach different groups about playing video games. I think just on the first level, it can be hard to like introduce yourself to, sometimes they don't want to say hello to the one girl in the group. And I don't know if that was like more of a problem when I was in high school or what, but it's just sometimes you don't already have you don't already know somebody who plays these games, and then it's a whole group of people who already know each other, already have been playing for years, and then just nobody's telling you how to play. It's like a whole lot of information all at once. So some of that maybe, but then again, it's basically just like the Smash Club at my high school is what I'm thinking of. I didn't really I don't do too much, so just figured I'd try and answer.
Thank you, Heather.
Oh, that's helpful. I mean, I think, and for anybody approaching a group from the outside, especially when that group is as well established as like online gaming communities, it can be extremely intimidating. And so I don't think it necessarily matters as to your identity, but just being an outsider to those groups is an initial barrier to entry. Yeah, thank you so much for your talk, Jason. This was really interesting because I always thought that fighting games are that one kind of area of gaming that was really hard to do properly online. And it's nice to hear that they've come up with technical solutions to make this stuff work, because it really is just millisecond, quick input stuff that determines whether or not you win or lose. And so it's cool they have the technology to deal with it now.
Yeah, it has led to some interesting things, like there is the Rift or whatever, like you can get out of sync sometimes. So there have been sets where, luckily it's only happened in friendlies, but I've seen moments where like both people think they win. But usually that doesn't happen, but it's kind of funny.
Like the election?
Yeah, kind of.
Too soon.
Sorry.
The election is actually run by Rollback. Surprise.
Luke, can you talk yet?
Maybe? Can you hear
Yeah.
me?
Yep.
Wait, what's my name? Shayna. All right. So this is very much just like a your opinion thing, and like other people who follow more professional gaming in the room. Obviously, with these original fighting games like the Street Fighter 2s and like the original like Soul Calibers, basically like any older gen fighting games, basically how they were released is how they ended up being played competitively. So like if they had bugs, those are actually often utilized as like strategies and stuff. And nowadays that's completely different because games are constantly balanced, they're constantly patched, they add new characters, and like the meta is like constantly changing. So do you think that helps a fighting game stay more relevant for a long time, or do you think that's actually hurting these newer games?
I think it depends. For some games it helps, and for some games it hurts. I think for Melee, the old Smash game we were talking about, it definitely helps in a way that it doesn't get patched, because if Nintendo was still patching and releasing updates for that game, they would have patched out wave dashing, they might have patched out L canceling, a lot of the things that people say makes Melee great, and all that. And what's interesting about Melee is like the meta kind of develops on its own. So someone will figure out their own technique. And so the meta in that respect will keep developing, and it hasn't been stagnant for the last 20 years. So it's been working out that way. There are things that should be patched out. Like there is a freeze glitch with the ice climbers that's illegal now. There are other glitches that are illegal in the game. There are some glitches that are too hard to perform in game, so they don't really mind that. But there are rules in place for things like that. I think for a game like Smash 4, yeah, like you have the 5 DLC characters to kind of keep adding interest to the game, but then they added Bayonetta, who was a super polarizing character. She was just way too good. And then they were like, we're going to release Smash Ultimate soon. So there are no more updates coming out for the game while we're working on this new game. But nobody knew that a new game was coming out. So they just thought that the game was completed. And then like the number one character was like ruining the competitive scene pretty much. So it definitely depends. I think a good game, if it has like its merits, like it'll survive past the patch updates. But yeah, I think also Smash is a little bit of a special case because it's pretty much all based on around the community. Like other fighting games have first party support, so you're going to move on to the next Street Fighter when the new Street Fighter comes out. That's usually how it works. But yeah, that's a good question though.
So I guess we're kind of at the end, unless Alex, was there anything you wanted to like add that you were hoping we were going to cover and maybe didn't, or was this like what you were looking for?
No, I mean, this was excellent. I really appreciate your work on this, Jason. I love the angle of bringing audiences in by sort of explaining the game in an interesting way, in an exciting way. And I'm really looking a lot at that right now. So I'm glad you're kind of talking about not only how to educate, you know, the audiences and make it more fun for more people to just watch, but yeah, also this idea of making old games fun again by sort of recoding and fixing them. And I think that there's a big market for that. I think there's a lot of people that would actually love to watch competitive games from their youth that are, you know, not, you know, 32-bit like laggy slow motion, you know, but like played at the highest level over again, you know. So
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting stuff.
Thanks.
So please come next week. It'll be super informative and nothing like winter to get outside after we talk about what we're going to talk about. But I mean, it was 80 degrees today, so
It was gross. Okay.